Welcome to Community Forum, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. The social service agency Rincon Family Services will be celebrating its second annual gala this year. The Humboldt Park organization will be honoring a longtime supporter and board chair, Hilda Frontani. And here to talk about the organization and the gala, we have Eddie Borrayo. Welcome.
Thank you, Juan Carlos, for inviting me and allowing us to talk a little bit about the organization.
Okay, and thanks for coming out today. First, let's start by talking about the history of Rincon Family Services, how it came about, who the founders were, what inspired it.
Well, think about 41 years ago, pretty much in the neighborhood of Humboldt Park, there was pretty much a very undercover war going on. The community itself, the city itself was plagued by opiate narcotics, people being pretty much dying due to overdose of heroin. We were just at the brinks of the epidemic with HIV. So 41 years ago, a group of community leaders pretty much met together and said, well, we need to do something. We need to create an organization to really start addressing the issues of the community. That's where the humble beginning of El Rincon Community Clinic came about.
So it was first a community clinic.
It was a clinic pretty much because it addressed all the issues. In Spanish, La Clínica. So it's very welcoming, very non-threatening for the community. So it became a beacon, pretty much the first point of contact for a lot of people seeking help to really start combating the addiction of opiates, or in this case, heroin. Then the introduction of methadone maintenance treatment started, which was almost in line with the organization. So El Rincon back then was the first organization that started providing scientifically based medication, it's called methadone. That medication is used to reduce the cravings and pretty much start providing some hope for individuals that are combating the addiction of heroin addiction. From that humble beginning, we fast forward 40 years, and that's where we started our first gala, pretty much making honoring the past, but in focusing the future. And that's when we changed the organization's name from El Rincon Community Clinic to what is currently known as Rincon Family Services.
Okay, so it was, like you said, you used the word beacon to drawing people in need of help, and you said there was a war that wasn't really even talked about was it mainly in Humboldt Park, or was it citywide? These people facing heroin addiction. Tell me a little more about that history.
Yeah, pretty much. The history of addiction, especially in Chicago, there with heroin, there was two fronts. The African American community were pretty much devastated, but with the Latinos, it was primarily the Puerto Ricans. Puerto Rican people, the community itself, especially in Humboldt Park, they were just devastated with the heroin, and nobody knew what to address. What El Rincon Community Clinic, when it founded, was pretty much to engage, provide assistance, and provide hope, not only with the services, but being able to provide those services in the language. It's that sense of culture that's why I use the word beacon, because they felt at home. They felt that they were being provided services by people that understand their roots, their history, and just that mere understanding allowed them to process the addiction disease itself.
Wow. So you're saying before Rincon, La Clínica, as you called it, came about, there really wasn't any service for this large Puerto Rican community facing this problem of addiction. And who are the individuals that came around that problem and said we have to do something? Tell me about them.
Our founder, Rafael Paloma Rios, which is we have the current center where we provide the majority of the services on 3809 West Grand, was named for him. That person was a community leader. in many aspects. Not only was he able to provide, bring people together to really start addressing the issue, but he also was the founder of the organization. So from the onset of the clinic, we had leaders. They were literally saying there needs to be something to be done for this. In Rincon, El Rincon Community Clinic was one of the first Latino organizations really to address any issue. So there was a couple of organizations in the city, but longevity, El Rincon Community Clinic is one of the oldest, at least in the provision of substance abuse.
Okay.
Not only was Mr. Rios able to bring community leaders, but he was also able to bring in stakeholders, the elected officials, the community leaders, but also faith-based. So from this perspective of bringing everybody that's important in the community together to talk about it, it really started a positive conversation that anything that is of lack in the community, as long as the community is together, then there is hope.
Right. And talking about this, so what was law enforcement, what was the medical community doing prior to this to respond to addiction? Was it just incarceration? Was that primarily the...
Pretty much that's what we're looking at back then and even still today.
Still
Some
today.
remnants, we still see that. Because when you look at the person that has this addiction, the only thing that you're seeing is somebody that is using an illicit drug. They're not seeing the person that has an emotional struggle within that is compounded by the addiction or the socioeconomic distress that they may be undergoing. So all these little points, law enforcement, because the addiction itself takes over, these individuals will do anything for the substance. So they'll steal, they'll rob, they'll
Right.
kill. Before treatment really started being accepted, even in the medical community, the only thing that there was available was inpatient detox, which is a 3-day medically induced withdrawals. But the psychological pain that they were undergoing, the clients, that was not being addressed. And what happened was they went into jail, they came out, went back to the cycle of using drugs. Same thing with medical detox. Vicious cycle.
Right.
Until organizations started saying, well, there's other alternatives.
Yeah, and with what you're telling me, if I'm understanding you correctly, there, addiction is just, it seems like the top layer of a whole host of other issues that have to be dealt with by an individual, or as you guys in Rincon Family Services, as with, I guess, with the family, have to work through, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Especially working with Latinos, we have to include the family. In the family, traditionally you associated that's the mom, the dad, the siblings. But with Latinos, we have an expansion.
Right.
We have to bring the abuelitos, the abuelas, the tios, whoever is important. And that is where it's key, is really understanding the community that we're working with and really telling them, who do you want to work with? Who in your family do you feel comfortable? Because when people are suffering from addiction, they burn their bridges, what we call.
Right.
So all the doors are closed and the family members don't trust them. So through the recovery process, they're able to re-engage and we become a support, not only for the client, but also for the family, for them to understand what is really going on with their loved ones. And that is where the concept of the family services, when we honor the past, keeping Rincon and bringing in the family. Because not only was the organization striving to be more holistic and engaged for the community, but also in these times, we needed to bring in other services. And bringing other services means being more acceptant. Many people respect and protect the integrity of what was called El Rincon Community Clinic, but community leaders, in the sense, were still doubtful with the treatment that we're providing because we were serving the hardest to reach or the hardest to engage individuals.
Right.
With the more stigma. Individuals that are using heroin, for the most part, are when they come into service, they have been in jail, they have family members have left them, most likely they have contracted an infectious disease because Some of these individuals are using $300, $400, $500, even $1,000 a day. And
Right. Just throwing all of that away and creating places of pain and severing relationships in the process. How give me an example. You don't have to name anybody, but give me an example of when you or someone at Rincon Family Services has worked with the family to help the entire family, help an individual make it through recovery and come to the other side of healing and wholeness. Do you have? Can you think of a good example from your experience?
Well, we have multiple examples,
Right.
but one that really that brings in is somebody that we were able to help within the different programs we have. There was a mother that had a DCFS case with child protection because of child endangerment. So that person was enrolled in our Intact Family, which is a program that we have for DCFS cases. Heroin addicted. Father was not engaged because of the ongoing lies that the mom had.
Right.
But she also had a DUI case. That means she was driving under the influence. So she
Right.
had not only a legal but also a child protection cases. We were able to engage her, for her to see where her path was leading. She was able to be stabilized on her medication. She was able to understand the dynamics that she needed to do to be a more successful parent.
Right.
So the cases moved very successfully from DCFS. Now she has protection. She was custody of her child. She was able to address her legal case with the DUI. And she was able to understand her past negative decision with her significant others that led
Right.
back to her addiction. So it's really engaging every single aspect of the person, helping them make positive decisions. And if they do fall a little bit back, being able to be there and help them reestablish.
Right. Tell me a little bit about that that falling back, and because with addiction, people do, fall off the wagon or go back and use whatever substance they're addicted to. How does Rincon respond to that? Because it's, I'm sure, for some people, a process of years.
That's correct.
Right. How do you respond to somebody that has struggled and falls back, and they can get back up and then try to get back on the path of healing?
It's really allowing the client to reestablish a relationship with themselves. If you want to think about an addiction, is almost like having a mask. So that mask of the addiction, they see themselves every day, and the only thing they see is all the negative stuff they've done over the life. And through the process of treatment, they're able to acknowledge their past, but also see hope for the future. In life, like anything else, we all make mistakes. We all have bad days. Unfortunately, with individuals that are suffering from addiction, anything could set them back because their coping mechanisms are very limited. So we're really engaging them and teaching them how to be able to cope with negative setbacks. Even in the case that they do fall back, they're able to engage with anybody at the clinic and talk about it, see where their mistakes were and how they're able to move forward and not be ashamed, because shame is the biggest factor for individuals to not only fall back, but to leave treatment. If they feel that they were ashamed and they don't feel that trust with their therapist, then they'll leave. But if they feel comfortable, they feel welcomed, and they could say, I made a mistake. And somebody that is there and saying, where can we help you? How can we be there to support you? It's just those simple words, or just being in the moment with them, allows that person to feel safe and being able to process that fallback.
So I guess it's I guess the phrase that's coming to me is an attitude of no matter what, Rincon will be there.
That's correct.
With a person that is trying to overcome addiction. Am I correct in
That's correct.
Okay.
But the organization has evolved from there because there's so much other factors in our community. Back then, the biggest epidemic was with Puerto Rican or Hispanic population was injection drug usage,
Okay.
cocaine, which we have a strong history. But now what we're seeing is not only is there issues there, but there's also issues within the Latino African American community, issues of traffic safety. That's
Okay.
one of our biggest success stories that in the past was not acknowledged because
Right.
everything was the clinic. Behavioral health and social services
Right.
is now the future. One of our programs that we have is our traffic safety program, which is called Safety Illinois, or the SCALES program, where Rincon Family Services is teaming up with other community-based organizations in 20 communities, 10 Latinos, 10 African Americans, to reduce the traffic fatalities within the 18 to 34-year-old African American and Hispanic males in the areas of driving under the influence,
Okay.
not wearing a seatbelt, or texting and driving. Now technology is not only fast, but also it could be very dangerous.
Right. So, in your work with Rincon and your connection with other community-based organizations, you saw that there was a problem as far as something which seems simple as traffic safety. And what are some of the fruits that have come of this work that Rincon is now doing?
Well, it's the ability of sharing the knowledge and the wealth that we've accumulated over 41 years, sharing that with our sister organization or our partner organizations, and really allowing the wealth of a community coming together, addressing a need, and coming together to provide solutions. A lot of the things that is going on within our communities is that we become little silos. We work within our communities and we keep everything there.
That's a good point.
Now that we're working as different organizations together, meeting and really discussing what are the issues, we could bring resources, talent and knowledge, human capital, which is very limited. There is far and few in between Latino professionals, especially in social services,
Right.
that meets the needs of the demand that's out there. But if we come together, we bring in those resources, we're able to logistically address these topics and really present logical explanations to future funders or even to the state of Illinois to present policies to address these issues. Because it's as simple as teaching, I have a 4-year-old, and once in a while I turn on my car and I don't buckle up. My 4-year-old tells me, Daddy, before you turn on the car, you need to buckle up.
Right.
So it's just going back to the basics. And as long as we share the information, the legacy that this organization will have is one that was in tune with the city, one that was in tune with the needs, and one that responded.
Okay. You also have an anger management program, right? Tell me about that and how that came about, the reasons that inspired it, and stories of success you've seen through that program.
Sure. Again, the history when we were working,
It all goes back to history.
It goes back. Our
Right.
clients, who are our clients? The ones that were seeking us were those that were coming out of jail. One of the mandates for clients that were being released from the penal system was anger issues. How are they able to address those issues? And there is very few organizations that provide the services that is linguistically and culturally relevant. So there was a niche there that we were able to meet the demands. So it is really bringing all resources, and this is something that is unique with our organization. It doesn't matter at what point or in which program a client comes in, they will be assessed properly and all services will be wrapped around. So if there's a need in any of the issues identified, we will wrap that person for their success. Because what we believe is if we provide quality services, we're impacting that person, but we're impacting that person's generations. So our approach is transgenerational.
Okay. And specifically, with like I'm still curious about how the anger management program works.
Okay.
What happens? Let's say I'm fresh out of being in jail or in prison, and I'm mandated to seek help with this problem I have. How would that happen?
Okay, so the client comes in, they're assessed, and we look at the indicators that creates the anger. First of all, we have to make sure that it's an anger issue and there's no other underlying pathology.
Okay.
But if it's just basic anger issues, it's identifying it, looking at what are the factors, and processing that with that individual. So through individual or group counseling, they're able to process and they're able to develop almost a plan in case if they do find themselves in a situation that creates an anger outburst, then they'll have a plan A, B, and C what to do. Either a relaxation technique or a different mechanism to let out that frustration in a way that is pro-social.
Okay. Now, you said these programs have been rooted in your experience and your history with the community, of offering the community hope and I guess service, and not just hope, but also services in the language that they understand, with the cultural sensitivity required to work with the Latino and primarily the Puerto Rican community in that area. That's something you're seeking now to honor, right? Through this gala that you mentioned, you spoke about earlier. And this year you're honoring Hilda, what is
Frontani?
Frontani. Who is she and why is she being honored? And what do you hope to celebrate through this gala?
Well, Hilda Frontani is our board president, but more than that, she's been a community leader, community icon for decades. She has been founder of multiple organizations, Latino organizations across the city. She has served in the board of high organizations. She also has worked in different segments in different government departments. So she's been very influential in a lot of areas that really influence Latino, but primarily Latina empowerment.
Okay.
One of the things that we're doing at the gala is not only acknowledging her lifetime achievement, but also honoring her strides that she has made towards empowering Latinas. The other thing that we are doing is we are honoring her by naming one of our newest office buildings as the Hilda Frontani Women Center. So that is going back to her legacy of being a forefront in providing empowerment for Latina women.
The focus on Latinas, if the Latino community overall was lacking in services, Latinas probably faced even greater barriers, I imagine. And what other organizations has she helped partner with or connect Rincon Family Services with?
She participates in a national, don't quote me on this, it's the Puerto Rican Women Coalition, I believe. Okay. I can't recall the name, but it's a national coalition for Puerto Rican professionals. She's also been the founder, one of the founders at it's a child care.
The name escapes you.
The name escapes me at the moment. But she's been key in a lot of organizations. So having her be a board chair at our organization, it's a great privilege and honor that we have.
And what will, if somebody wants to go to the gala, they can get more information where?
And they can visit our website at www.rinconfamilyservices.org, or they can call at our number at 773-564-9757.
Okay, and they can get all that information through the website.
That is correct.
Okay, we're getting close on running out of time. Now I want to know a little more about you. how did you come to this profession, and then how did you come into Rincon Family Services?
Well, I've been in the field for about 12 years, primarily working in nonprofit management. I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in social work from the University of Chicago. I have known of the organization pretty much from the beginning because back then El Rincon Community Clinic was one of the largest substance abuse providers. That's been my specialty. So when I was invited by our current CEO and president, Mr. Rolando Correa, to be part of his team, I jumped on the opportunity because I knew the potential of the organization. So I've been at the capacity as clinical director at the organization for about starting my third year now.
Okay, I'm always curious, what motivated you to choose this profession, to do a master's and all of that? I'm always curious about what experience or what person directs the direction of a person's career.
I've always liked sociology and anthropology, and just by mere curiosity in my studies and at my bachelor's, I got a bachelor's in psychology, and I said, well, what can I do? And through my studies and through professors, they started gearing me towards a social work degree. I started very young. My first job as in a nonprofit behavioral health organization. And I enjoyed it, and I said, well, I need to make a career. I've always assumed the thought that, well, I want to be the therapist.
Right.
But my goal was, can I mold other people? Can I lead? What's the bigger impact? And that is the reason why I chose the administrative track, so I could make bigger macro impacts.
Wow. Sounds like you really want to have bring more Latinos into
That is correct.
into your profession as well.
That is correct.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming out and sharing about the gala, and look forward to having you back someday.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Community Forum is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Community Forum for local issues and concerns every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.